Hello and welcome to another episode of Closing the Distance. I'm your host, Ross Green. Today I am joined by worship pastor and sixth grade teacher, Kayla Dupree. Kayla, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain, really.
All right, that's what we like to hear. So you ready to just jump right in?
Let's do it. Just don't blindside me.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna throw in like a random question. That's why I write them down because I'm not good at making up stuff on the fly. Okay.
Me either.
So Kayla, you are a phenomenal singer and
Well, thank you.
musician. Where does that love of music come from? And when did you feel God calling you to lead worship?
Well, I think I've just always loved music in general. My dad basically made us listen to gospel music from, I think, the time I was in my mother's womb. Because I can just remember, even on Christmas morning, I think my dad had gotten a gospel CD or something that one, or no, it was a gospel cassette tape. I don't even think they were making CDs that much then, but it was a cassette tape, and I can remember listening to, I think it was the Gaithers on Christmas morning while I was sitting in my little Barbie Jeep that I almost ran my dad over in the living room. But I think just growing up, growing up in church and just the music part just kind of, that was my favorite part. And I loved going, in my car when I started driving and being able to just sing and sing as loud and as bad and as off key as I wanted to, and I didn't have to worry about anybody listening to me. But I've always liked control, and so trying to sing on the level that whoever I was listening to was singing on, I always liked to be able to match that. So it just became almost like an obsession. So I think I've just always been around it, and I've just always enjoyed it. That was my outlet almost of being able to just, let frustration loose. And especially when I was a teenager, just be able to really connect with the Lord in my own worship time, which was usually in the shower or in my car. And if it was in the shower, my dad would have to shut the hallway door, or you could either hear him yelling from the living room, "Turn it down!" Or he'd come bang on the door and be like, "Kayla, hush!" But to answer your second question, I think I was, let's see, how old was I? I don't remember exactly how old I was. I want to say I was maybe 16 or 17 years old when I absolutely knew that worship ministry was what I was called to do, to lead worship. I knew from the time I started taking piano lessons. I took piano lessons from the time I was 7 years old to about 10 years old, I think. And then I stopped taking lessons, and when I was about 14 years old, I picked piano back up and just kind of learned from different people, and then I picked up the guitar, and that was kind of like an obsession. I played so much to where my mom would have to come in and say, "Kayla, it's time to go to bed. You have school tomorrow." And my fingers would be so calloused over that I really didn't have any feeling left in them. But I remember specifically when I knew that the Lord, it was almost like the Lord looked at me like you and I are talking and said, "Kayla, this is what you're meant to do. This is what I want you to do. This is your calling." But we were at a youth rally, or it was either Driven one year. I don't remember which of the two. But I was up here singing or playing the piano one, and Pastor Chris Darty was up here preaching, and he was talking about hearing from the Lord and just being sensitive to the Holy Spirit and sensitive to the Lord speaking to you. And I can remember, and this is awful that I even thought this, but he was talking to the other youth that were sitting out in the congregation, and he was like, "Once the Lord speaks to you and lays it on your heart, I don't want you to hesitate. I want you to come here, and I want you to tell me what he said." And I can remember all of these kids and all of these youth coming up and just telling him things that I'm like, and again, this was not the most Christian thing to think at the time, and I was standing on this stage, but I was like, I know they didn't make that up, and I know that Jesus ain't talking to them and he ain't talking to me. Like, I know what my Christian walk is, and I know exactly what they were doing last night, as a matter of fact. And there again, I shouldn't have even been thinking that. That was wrong that I even thought that. But I can remember getting so angry, not frustrated, but I was so angry with God that I was like, dude, what is your problem? Like, do you have a problem with me right now? Like, I'm up here worshiping and using my gifts to praise you, and you won't even talk to me. Like, what is up with that? And I can remember getting so angry with God at that point that I was like, God, if I'm even supposed to be up here, I thought that I was supposed to be up here, but if you really are calling me into worship ministry and I'm supposed to lead worship, let Chris Daugherty turn around, stop in the middle of his sentence, turn around and tell me what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. Let him tell me that I'm supposed to be called into worship ministry. Kid you not. Uh-oh, my watch went off. I kid you not. In a split second, I couldn't even get that thought out of my head in time. Chris stopped in mid-sentence and turned around and called my name and told me that the Lord wanted me to know that I would be in worship ministry. And I was like, okay, God, I got you, man. Got you. Because I was like, oh, yeah, I put the, okay, I got it. I got it. So that at that moment, I knew then that worship ministry and leading worship was where I needed to be. Has it been fun? Absolutely. Has it been hard? Absolutely. There's been times where I've thought, God, I think you made a mistake. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm too busy. I have other things that I want to do, but I can't because I'm tied up in this. And I've honestly thought, I've thought sometimes that God has made a mistake, but it's mornings like on Sunday mornings when we come in and one person gets saved and one person comes up to me or another worship team member and says, that song really spoke to me, or what y'all said about that song, or whatever it is. It's moments like that I'm like, okay, God, I understand, and I'll keep, doing that until I take my last breath. So,
for me personally, the moments that I know, like when I look at you and I could tell, like, Kayla is supposed to be worship pastor, while the band and you do a wonderful job on Sunday morning, it's Thursday nights at practice when I see you organizing everything and I see you giving instruction and, taking time with each musician, with each singer. That's the moments where I'm like, that's the worship pastor. And the fact that you've gone out of your way recently to have us do the Bible devotions every single week and really just helping us unify as a group so that we can give glory to God in a better and bigger way. Those are the things that make me think in my head, Kayla's the worship pastor. So I just want to let you know that, a little encouragement, before we move on and get into
I appreciate
the
that.
rest of it. So speaking of moving on, though, let's go to the next question. Now, like I said in the intro, you are also a teacher.
Yes.
And I'm sure you're great at it. Not that I've ever, I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I'm sitting in on one of your classes. I'm a little bit past that at this point. But where did that teaching come from? Like, where did that desire to teach young people come from? Because like, I just remember, like, one day, one day you're up in the youth room, just leading worship, and I'm up there banging the drums, probably not listening to you, but
no, not Ross.
Not Ross. No,
I'm kidding.
I'm always a well-behaved person. But
move on, Ross. Move on.
But all of a sudden, I just hear you're going to GSW and getting a degree in education, and you're wanting to teach middle school kids, which bless your heart.
I get the same reaction everywhere when they find out I teach 6th grade.
Yeah, but it's just like, I'm just sitting there going, like, what in the world made you want to do that? Not saying, like, it's a bad thing or anything, but, like, it's just surprising a little bit,
Well, funny story, actually. When I was in 6th grade, when you get in middle school, not really middle school, elementary school, I feel like, or at least I felt like this, and if any of my former teachers are watching, just kind of skip ahead. But I really felt like, You had to walk a thin line. I mean, you couldn't go to the bathroom without having to ask. You couldn't speak without having to ask. And I understand that now as a teacher of what that was teaching you. It was teaching you, don't talk when somebody else is talking. You don't leave a room without being excused first. You need to, go ahead and take care of your business before class so that you're not missing important information. I get that now. Then I didn't. And then I got into middle school and I was like, okay, this is even worse. Like, I hated middle school. Really hated sixth grade. Because sixth grade, that's when everything is changing. The way you think, your body's changing, your mannerisms are changing, just everything is changing. And so it was really, really awkward. So I made up my mind then. I was like, when I get out of school, I ain't looking back. Like, your girl is gone. Because I did not like school, especially math. I didn't like math in sixth grade. I hated it. I had a big, big hate for math. Because we were dealing with fractions, and it was like keep, change, flip. You got to do this, this, this. And I was like, oh my gosh. So 7th grade was okay. 8th grade, I had a teacher, and a lot of, if anybody that's watching this went to Sly County and had Mr. Reese as their teacher, then they'll totally get where I'm coming from. And if you didn't like Mr. Reese, then something was just not jiving with you and him, because he was the funniest and coolest math teacher I ever had. And it was him in 8th grade that made me realize that math was actually fun, or that it could be fun. It would make you want to literally pull your hair out till you were bald, but it was fun. And I started to learn to appreciate math and numbers and formulas and geometry and the way there were patterns in math. And the older I got, the more I started working with the youth in like on Wednesday nights and with the music part of it, the more I realized that and sorry for those of you that were in the youth then, but I liked the middle schoolers better than I liked the high schoolers, because they're so impressionable and they're so they just appreciated the small things in life. When you get in high school, you're too cool for school. I mean, it's like, things that you laughed about and joked about in middle school were, those are lame in high school. So I ended up just falling in love with the middle school age. And I can remember some of the things that I dealt with as a middle school kid, especially when I was 11, 12 years old. Now, I firmly believe that age is the age that you really need to drill morals, and you really need to drill respect for others and just general morality things, concepts, because they are so impressionable. And I remember, and I won't go into the full story, but I can remember in 6th grade having a little boy tell me that, and I don't know why we were even doing this, but he was looking at all of my friends and said, yeah, I'd be your boyfriend. I'd be your boyfriend. Then he got to me and told me I was butt ugly. Yeah. And now I'm thinking, I should have punched that kid between the eyes. Like, I should have literally punched that kid between the eyes, because that was mean. Like, kids are mean. Bottom line, they're still mean to this day. But him telling me that stuck with me until I was almost 21 years old. And I can remember feeling so worthless and so, I almost felt like at that moment, like I could have just went and crawled into a hole. And I remember the things that I had to deal with on a daily basis, weekly basis, yearly basis at school because of the way I felt about me. And, people think, well, you're the preacher's kid. Your daddy was around. Your mom was around. They loved you unconditionally. They never, spoke ill against you or, did you wrong. But at that point, it didn't matter to me. I was hurt. And in my mind, I thought, well, my mom and dad have to love me because they're my mom and dad. But these other people, I have to live up to their standards for them to even want to be my friend. And then it started a downward spiral and started this, this self, I I don't even know what you would really call it, this almost like this self-hate. It got to the point where I wouldn't even go deer hunting without my hair fixed and makeup on. Like the deer were going to see if my, eyelashes were on point that day. I mean, it got to that point. And so I say all of that to say, when I graduated high school, I was still dealing with the self-image and still felt like, I had to work hard for somebody else besides my family to love me unconditionally. And not even to mention that, God created me in his image. That thought had gone out the window. So I ended up, starting out as wanting to be a physical therapist. And then I saw all the science classes and I was like, I can't do that. So I changed and wanted to be a PE teacher. And then I was like, nope, you still got to take some science classes. I don't want to do that. So then I thought, well, I love math. And I did. I developed this love of math from 8th grade up into even college math. So I was like, I really love math. And I do love science. I was like, but I don't want to teach high school science or college science. I just want that bare minimum. But so I ended up changing my major to middle grades math and science. So I'm certified to teach 4th grade through 8th grade math and science. And my main goal in that was, number one, I want them to know that one teacher has their back. And now we have a great group of teachers at Sly County, and I know everybody has their opinions. But in my opinion, I had a great group of teachers that welcomed me my first year there. And then I had a great group of teachers that taught me there. But I made it my personal goal that, number one, I wanted my kids to know that Miss Dupree cared. And Miss Dupree, if we don't learn how to do any math, they knew that there was somebody fighting for them in their corner. And then number two, I wanted to show them the love of Jesus, because we know public school is kind of like, oh, no, Jesus, don't put any religion in there. Well, I'm a Christian first and foremost, child of God, and I knew that I could, that was my gateway to be able to, even if I couldn't outright say, let me tell you about Jesus today. The love that I show them is the love that comes from Christ. And so I've even had opportunities before where students have come up and asked me questions about Jesus at school. So it's just, I guess I never really wanted to be a teacher until later on in life, and I changed my major 2 or 3 times. But I think it was events in my life kind of were already in that direction of being a teacher before I even realized it. So
it's so interesting. You talk about how when you were personally in middle school, you dealt with self-image, and that sort of was a continuous theme moving forward into your high school years and things like that. I feel like so many young people deal with that, especially in a world where we have a lot of focus on, how people look.
Absolutely.
I remember in my 7th grade year, I had changed schools, started going to King's Academy instead of going to.
I went there,
Sumter.
kindergarten and pre-K.
Yeah. And
Kings.
it was funny because I went there and it was even a smaller group of people. I still felt like, in a bigger school, you could sort of just mix into the crowd and have the perks of being a wallflower. Please don't sue me, whichever book company put that title out. But
we don't own the copyright to that.
Yes.
Credit to whoever created it.
Good for you. Anyways, but there's that sort of perk. But when you're in a smaller group, it was more noticeable. And the fact that up until 7th grade, I had a shaved haircut. I wore hoodies all the time. I made jokes about history because I was interested in it. And everyone, I just felt the eyes of people going oh, no, that's dumb. Don't be interested in the things you're interested in.
It's weird.
Your clothes are dumb. Which was weird because, I had went to Staley and I was going to the Sumter schools when they were doing the dress code thing.
Right.
Everyone wears khakis or black slacks and a polo all the time. That's it. Mm-hmm. Right? So I go to this school and they're like, oh, you can wear whatever you want. And I was like, oh, cool, I can wear whatever I want. And then I realized the things I enjoyed wearing weren't fashionable.
They were different.
So I remember literally that summer, I just decided I was I'm going to start getting my haircut paid for, and I'm going to start dressing. Basically, I started dressing like a beach bum, just wearing shorts, sandals, button up, and a fedora, like, like on the back of my head, like. It was a whole thing, but I thought that was cool, and I was like, I'm just gonna start acting cool, and maybe that'll make things good. Unfortunately, I'm like allergic to cool, so
I think we all are.
yeah,
Once we get out of high
just
school,
a little bit.
Just get rid of cool.
So I remember it took time to, like, you're talking about, like, up till like 21, you were still dealing with what that kid said in 6th grade. Same thing, like up to like I was like an adult, I still was dealing with like, do I look okay? Do people like me?
Right.
All that sort of stuff. Except now, like, in the back of my mind is like, this is going to affect whether or not I get paid or not, like that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's like
it's like funny how your mindset changes.
Yeah,
when you get
just
when
a little
you get
bit.
older.
It's like popularity, more like money.
Right.
But so I remember that, and I was just thinking, the place where I know I felt the most accepted was at church.
Right.
And so I just sort of think in my head, it was like, isn't it super cool that someone who grew up in church, dealt with self-image issues, is now turning around and is like, hey, I'm still doing the stuff at church, but now I'm also going to, like, jump right into the battle lines of the year that you literally just said was your least favorite year, and start, like, being a positive influence on these young people. And they really need it, especially during that time. Because middle school is like the most molding time.
Oh, absolutely.
There is. It's like you're going through the most changes. It's not cool to watch cartoons anymore, which it's like you're going from, like, everything you like is different. Like, you can't, like, it's weird if you're listening to, like, Kids Bop, Disney songs. They're not cool again until you're 20.
Right. I'll jam out to some Mulan, some Pocahontas. You throw Aladdin on there, some Whole New World. Woo! I will sing that until I can't sing it no more.
And it's funny because, like, unless you were like a theater kid or something,
right?
Like, theater kids, they can get by with that. They're like, oh, they can sing whatever.
Yeah.
You better be like in, like, I remember, I know there was like a certain group at school. They're like, you better be like in songs about jacked up trucks and going out in the field.
Right?
And it wasn't like, don't get me wrong, I do like those songs.
Mm-hmm.
They're fun. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to feel pressured into liking these songs.
Right.
Like, and that was the thing. Like, school is such a weird place where you feel pressured into your likes. Rather when you're, like, out there being an adult, it's like, no, you're going to like the things you like, and no one has to see you like them.
Right.
And then eventually you're just like, I want everybody to see me like them. So.
Right. And it's like you said, in 6th grade, especially, because that's the only grade I've taught. But from what I've seen, it's so easy for them to just accept what's put in front of them. Just like with, with math, I can tell them this method is going to work, and they'll believe me because I'll show it to them. Well, just because that method works does not mean that's the best way to do it. That's not going to help them the most. And it's I won't get into that, but there's many different ways to do math, and we'll leave it at that. There's many different ways to do math, but some ways are better for you. Just like when you're multiplying big numbers, there's 3 different ways that I know. You have the standard algorithm, which is how me and you learned. You have the lattice method, and then you have partial product. Well, those 3 methods, the way that you understand better may not be the same method I use to understand math better. And in 6th grade, you were talking about how that's their most moldable time. That's when they really, really, really need to be hearing the gospel the most, is because just like I'm, I like to do the standard way, you may like to do the lattice way. I guess what I'm just trying to say is, because I could go on and on about those math methods, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, those are their most impressionable times, and we should be using those times to be able to, show them Jesus and be be a Christian. You don't have to be, just because the world says this way is the way you should be doing math does not mean that that's the way you should be doing math. It's the same way with some of the music that they listen to now. Just because that song says that it talks about the way men treat women, that does not mean that you go and treat women like that, because that's the way of the world. And they're so impressionable. And I said that to say this, that those kids, that's the whole reason why I teach that age group, and why I love that age group, is because they need to be told and need to be molded and shaped how God wants them to be shaped, and not the way the world, the world says that things should be going. I just want to throw that nugget out there.
No, I mean, that's really awesome, because I know that's advice, though, people could take, like, not just about math, but about life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's while there's only one way to get to heaven, let's make that clear.
Absolutely, only one.
One way. There are multiple ways to live your life. There's no like, while there is like a standard in the Bible, right? God's gonna lead you in a different direction than someone else,
right?
And so, it's like a book that I really love is A Pilgrim's Progress, right? And it starts off, and it's about this gentleman named Christian. Of course, like the whole book, everyone's names, like, you're not going to be like a John or a Robert. It's everyone's name is like a characteristic in that book. And so Christian, he gets to the cross, and he goes through all these things, and he gets to the cross by the end. Well, then the writer of the first one went back and wrote a sequel about the wife, right? And the wife is following, but her path is different. Her trials are different. And whenever she comes across things that the husband struggled with, she can deal with it better.
Absolutely.
In a different way. And so that's how life is. Everyone's journey is different.
Right.
But the destination, if your life is the way it's supposed to be, is the same. And that's heaven. So,
absolutely.
So that's,
absolutely.
There's that.
We'll take up an offering in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
If we have Cash App, PayPal, Apple Pay.
Yes. I have Venmo.
Venmo, yeah. So we have more questions. So
I'll talk about that all day long.
Yeah, we can talk about the gospel and how Christ is the way all day long.
Absolutely.
But now it's time to go from a story where you talk about a young man saying your butt ugly to a gentleman who obviously does not think your butt ugly.
He better not.
Or else he is in big trouble. You are married to Earl the Pearl Dupree.
He's going to kill you for saying that.
It'll be okay. It's all right. He'll just throw like a disc at me from disc golf.
There you go.
He does that enough.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Seriously.
Ooh. Anyways. And so one thing I love to do on this show is I love to give people the opportunity to brag on their spouse a little bit, get some brownie points. I did it for Jay. I'm going to do it for Blake once I get him up here to talk. So my question is this. What are 5 things you love about your husband?
That's going to be a hard one. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Well, just narrowing it down to 5 is going to be hard, honestly. He makes me laugh. That would be the number one. Well, not the number one, but one of them. I love to laugh. I love to cut up. If you know who my dad is, there is never a dull moment. So, and him and my sister Kelsey are so quick-witted, and I didn't get that trait. So it's always laughing, and so he makes me laugh. And he reminds me of my dad, which is kind of weird saying that, but in that sense, he reminds me a lot of my dad, and I'm a daddy's girl. And so one of the things that I've always found attractive in a man was they had to make me laugh. And from day one, I have laughed and laughed and laughed. And he makes fun of my laugh. He says I sound like, what is it he called it the other day? He said I sounded like a bird or something, like a hen cackling. That's what it was. He said I sounded like a hen cackling, and I was like, well, I appreciate that. But so the second thing is that he loves me for me. I don't have to act a certain way around him. I don't have to fit into this mold that he expects me to fit into. He loves me for me. He accepts my flaws, and he will tell you what they are, but we're not talking about those right now. But he just loves me for me. The third one would have to be that he's athletic. Those are he's very athletic, and I like athletic things. I like sports and everything, so we kind of connected. With that. We play disc golf now. Never thought I would play disc golf. Didn't even really know that that was a thing. And there is a science behind it, let me tell you.
Oh no, science.
Yeah, more science. More science. So that's three things that I absolutely love about my husband. The fourth thing would be his heart. And I know everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's such a generic answer. No, let me explain. My husband was not, he did not grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth, I guess you could say. And I'm sure some of you have kind of talked with him and heard his testimony, but he works hard, and his heart shows that he has a true heart for helping other people. He's a special ed teacher in the high school at Slack County High School. He's a football coach and a baseball coach. And I have parents come up to me quite often telling me that they just absolutely love how helpful and how basically what they were saying in my head translated to he has a big heart for other people and a big heart for helping other people. And I love that. It's nothing for my dad to call him and say, hey, will you come help me do blah, blah, blah. And Earl's like, yeah, I'll be right there. Or he'll, our friends, Jody and Casey, they'll call and say, or Jody will call and say, hey, can you come help me on this job? And Earl is, he wants to go help. Sometimes I think it's because he's just tired of sitting in the house, but he doesn't mind helping. He has a very helpful heart. And the fifth one would probably be, let's see if we can narrow this down, would probably be that he's very real. He's very, sometimes I tell him, I'm like, you're being very pessimistic. And he's like, no, I'm being a realist. And then that ends up turning into no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. But he is a very real person. And I am, if you've ever been around me or talked to me or asked for my opinion, I am like that. I don't like to sugarcoat things. I don't like for people to sugarcoat things when it comes to correcting me or telling me what I need to do or what I did wrong, even though I don't like to be told I'm wrong, because it happens very rarely at our house. Amen, Earl? I'll move on from that because that was a straight lie. But he's very real and he's very straightforward, and I absolutely love that because sometimes I do things or I say things at home that I shouldn't have said because it was rude, or my thought process behind something wasn't correct. And Earl will correct me, and I look at that as something that a spiritual leader does in the house. And he is, in our household, even though we don't have any children, he is our spiritual leader, and being real with me and being straightforward and telling me when I'm wrong, even when I don't like it. I just find that very attractive, and I find that very comforting, knowing that he's looking out for my best interest and for our best interest as husband and wife. So I could go on, but I'll stop.
No, that was fantastic. Yeah, Earl's a good dude.
He is. He's very good, very hardworking, very very mannerly. Even though sometimes I could pop him upside the head, but I don't, or refrain.
Well, that's good. I would hate to be out there waving at people with them and all of a sudden be like, hey, Earl, where'd that bruise come from right there.
What'd you do to your eyebrow right there? Oh, Kayla threw a shoe at me.
Or no, he does like the I don't want to share my private life
Yeah,
thing. He's like,
yeah.
oh, I tripped. I was fighting a bear.
Yeah, I got up in the middle of the night.
You should see the other guy.
Yeah. Public service announcement. I do not throw shoes at my husband, I promise.
I mean, he's pretty good at he's got that baseball background. He'd probably just catch it if you threw it at
Oh,
him.
yeah. He played football and baseball, so you would think he needs to catch it.
Yeah, I mean,
But I for real don't throw shoes at him. I don't throw objects at him. I don't throw things at him unless it's a pillow. But even then, like, very rarely do I throw a pillow at him. Gosh, people are going to walk away from this video thinking I'm abusing my husband.
Oh, shoot, Kayla's crazy.
I mean, there might be some truth to that.
I mean, to be fair, you've seen your dad. What? No, I mean,
Right?
He's a great guy. He's wonderful, and
You better hope he didn't just hear you say that.
He's gonna hear it, and then he's gonna talk to me about it, and he's probably gonna, send me to the principal's office, and which is just his office, which it feels like a principal's office a little bit, except way better.
When you make him mad, it's worse than a principal's office.
I will say this though, if it's compared to a principal's office, it's probably the best decorated principal's office I've ever been in.
It does look really cool. He has these like big 3 canvas pictures that this big old huge buck.
I always want to go like eat some like deer salami after I leave his office.
Deer
or
sausage.
Yeah. Anyways, let's not get started on food.
Yeah, it's lunchtime. I'm hungry.
Yeah. So this is going to be weird transition, but let me construct a narrative for you real quick. So you have been given the opportunity to go 5 years into the past and talk to 5 years ago you. What is, and you only have the opportunity to say like one thing to her. What do you say to 5 years younger you?
Ooh. Okay, so 5 years ago was when my husband and I started dating. We started dating January of 2015. I was at Lee University. So I'll pretend like it's right before we started dating. At that point, I was still dealing with the self-image. So I guess what I would say to myself is, remember whose you are first. Remember who created you and why you were placed on this earth and what your job is, what you are supposed to do. Keep your eyes on that. And don't stray away from it. Just you stay focused on that and God will take care of the rest. I think that because at that time in my life, I was really confused, trying to figure out what the heck am I supposed to do? Like I was in college, obviously, and I was working towards middle grades education at that point. And I was just kind of still wrestling with that idea of, are you going to be the 40-year-old cat lady that has 72 cats running around and never get married? Like, is there ever going to be somebody that the Lord created just for me? And I think I lost sight of what my job was and what my purpose was first and foremost, and that was to keep seeking His face and to remember whose I was, because I'm a child of God. If I could go back, I think that would be exactly what I would tell myself, was that I'm a child of God first, and I was created specifically by the Creator Himself and created the way He wanted me to be, not the way this world wanted me to be. So I think that could have saved myself a whole lot of heartache and confusion. And but even in those confusing times, I drew closer to the Lord and have now been able to help other people that struggle with that same thing. So,
and that's really the awesome thing, is that yes, in this hypothetical situation, it'd be really cool if you can go back and tell yourself something 5 years ago.
Oh, absolutely, that would be awesome.
But the thing is you're taking what you know now and you're applying it to others,
right?
And that's really the important thing. It's like the thing you dealt with doesn't have to be the heavy burden that it is for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone watching or listening to this, just something to carry in your life. Remember, if you really want to find, like, people always say, like, oh, I'm looking for peace. I'm looking for contentment in my mind about who I am and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Seek first the face of God, and you will find yourself becoming the person you would, like, all of us really want to be.
Right.
And also, you'll be so focused on how amazing and how awesome God is. The things of this, it's like that old hymn says, the things of this earth grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace, I believe is what the lyric is. And so if you're really searching to just sort of like drown out the world and not worry about all the negativity that it thrusts upon you, seek first God.
Absolutely.
That is the biggest piece of advice
Absolutely.
that I could give really anyone.
I agree 100% with that. It's almost like we're born with a void, and that void is approval. And whether you could be the most confident person in the world, but you still have that void of wanting some type of approval from somebody. And I think we look for that, and I know I did. We look for that in worldly things. But it's like Ross said, if you seek the face of the Lord and you keep drawing near to Him, and believe me, it's going to feel like the Lord, sometimes it felt like the Lord was totally ignoring everything I said. There were times where I would literally, people think that prayer time is saying, oh, Heavenly Father, thou art wonderful. No, my prayers are more like, hey, God, I'm struggling today. I thank you for today, but I want to be honest with you, I'm struggling. And I had to get to that point to where I was really, even when I felt like the Lord wasn't listening, it was almost like, God, I'm struggling. Lord, I feel like nobody else cares for me because they want to. It's out of obligation. Lord, I want to feel that unconditional love because somebody wants to. And it was when I finally felt like I kept pushing and kept praying and kept, just having faith that the Lord, would send that person. It was before Earl had came along that I finally felt okay, and it was like the Lord filled that void of He didn't have to go die on that cross for my sins. He didn't have to send, God didn't have to send His Son to pay for my stupidity and my ignorance. But He did because He wanted to. And that's where that void was filled, because somebody does love me because they want to and not out of obligation. And after I began to realize that and learn that and believe that in my heart, that's when the Lord allowed my path and Earl's path to cross, I believe. Because at that point in time, before I even had that right mindset and had that in my heart, I was a broken individual. Like, I felt like nobody wanted me. Like, it was out of obligation people had to deal with me. And so I 100% agree with what you said. You're absolutely right.
I'm glad we're in agreement.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. It'd be kind of awkward if we weren't.
Yeah, I'd be like, no, you're wrong. I'm just kidding.
No, I wouldn't do that. I'd just be like, all right, Ross, you can have it, whatever.
Okay, just leave the mic. Go home. I wouldn't drop it because this thing's expensive. But
no, my dad would beat my rear end.
Yeah,
Heck no.
He's not even my dad, and I'm sure he would
He'd
beat my rear end.
too.
I'd just be like, and I'd just be like, yes, sir, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So today we have learned a lot about you. We've
Yep.
learned about your past. We've learned about your relationship with your husband, the things that drive you, your beliefs. But my questions can't cover everything. So if there's one thing you would like to tell everyone listening or watching right now about yourself, and that's be the thing they carry away as in their impression of you, what would you like them to know about you?
Oh boy. I guess overall, to kind of, sum me up, would be I make mistakes. I'm human. A lot of you know that my mouth gets me in trouble more times than probably it helps me. But I'm a human just like you are. And if just because of what my father's title was or is, it does not exempt me from having to deal with struggles and battles in my mind, just dealing with life, because life is hard. This world is an ugly, mean place. But don't let, and I'm a testament to this, don't let what other people think of you dictate the path that you take, and dictate the choices that you make, and dictate the friends that you hang around with. Because ultimately, you have to answer for your actions, and you have to answer to how you lived your life on earth. Because, I mean, I can't, what decisions Ross makes, they may affect me, but that does not mean that his decisions need to affect my decisions either. So I guess if they take away anything from today, is that things are going to get hard, and this is probably not the correct terminology, but sometimes life just sucks. But you have to choose to see the side of, but the Lord woke you up and He blessed you. That was a blessing in itself. That next heartbeat that you just felt, that next breath that you just took, that's a blessing in its own. And as a Christian, we have a job to do. And as Christians, the devil is not going to sleep until he tries to defeat us. And just keep pushing forward. Stay in your Bible. Stay in your prayer closet. Get somewhere. If it's literally in your closet, do it. If it's in your shower time when you have your Bible audio on, do that. But don't let the world shape you. Let the Lord shape you, and stay true to Him. Listen to His word, because I promise you it'll never steer you wrong.
That was great. That was great. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking and having this interview.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope that everyone watching truly feels what the title of this show is all about. And that is closing the distance. I hope that everyone watching feels like they know you better. And I feel like, based on the conversation today, I really hope all of you know yourselves better at the end of this.
Absolutely.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. And may God bless you in all that you do.